Love him or not, Donald Trump dominating the race for president right now, drawing a record-shattering 24 million viewers to this week's first debate, drowning out his rivals, and now a brand new firestorm. Fellow candidates calling Trump out for his latest attack on Megyn Kelly. Top GOP strategists say this will pop the Trump bubble. But those predictions have been proven wrong before. Donald Trump standing by live to take on his critics after this report from John Carl.
Has Trump finally gone too far? The latest, this insult directed at Fox News host and debate moderator Megyn Kelly.
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
For the conservative group Red State, it was enough to boot the billionaire from their candidate gathering on Saturday.
I don't want my daughter in the room with Donald Trump.
And from Jeb Bush,
come on, give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Mr. Trump ought to apologize.
Trump later tweeted he meant to say no's. But in response to his cancellation, Trump's team called Red State editor-in-chief Eric Erickson a total loser who has a history of supporting establishment losers. It is an honor to be uninvited. So with Trump at war with both Fox News and a prominent conservative group, one of the biggest questions this morning, is he really a Republican? At Thursday's debate, he drew jeers after he refused to rule out an independent run. And Trump's liberal past is coming under fire, including his support for a single-payer health care system and his coziness with the Clintons.
I didn't get a phone call from Bill Clinton before I jumped in the race.
Another question, will Trump fade? Some of his opponents are now turning up the heat.
Because he's used to buying politicians.
But Trump isn't turning down the bombast that launched him to the top of the polls.
Our leaders are stupid. Our politicians are stupid.
Finally, can anyone step out of Trump's shadow? The two men flanking Trump on the debate stage, Jeb Bush and Scott Walker, did little to stand out. The two who may have helped themselves most, Senator Marco Rubio.
How is Hillary Clinton going to lecture me about living paycheck to paycheck? I was raised paycheck to paycheck.
And Ohio Governor John Kasich, who portrayed himself as an experienced, optimistic alternative to Trump.
And for people that want to just tune him out, they're making a mistake. Now, he's got his solutions. Some of us have other solutions.
Whatever happens, with Trump in the ring, more people are now paying attention to this campaign than anybody could have guessed.
Thanks to John Carl for that. And the man drawing all that attention joins us now, Donald Trump, on the phone. Good morning, Mr. Trump. Thank you for joining us. So you're hearing the rivals stepping up the rhetoric. Jeb Bush says you should apologize. Carly Fiorina had this tweet. Mr. Trump, there is no excuse. Scott Walker agrees. What's your response?
Well, I'll start off by saying Jeb Bush on women's health issues just destroyed his relationship with women, what he said a couple of days ago, if you want to really get down to the important stuff, because what he said about women and women's health issues was ridiculous, and I'm the exact opposite. And I've always had a great relationship to the women. The relationship has been amazing in terms of thousands of employees and top-level employees. And, you know, George, I was one of the first people in the construction industry to put women in charge of major construction projects, and my relationship has been great. Carly Fiorina, you know, she's having a lot of fun, but she doesn't discuss the fact that her tenure at Hewlett-Packard was a disaster. She then ran for the Senate, which nobody even talks about, and she lost in a landslide. And other than that, I wish her well. She's a very nice person.
So no apologies to Megyn Kelly? You don't think you don't think you crossed the line there?
No, not at all. I said, look, she asked me a very nasty question. I have nothing against Megyn Kelly, but she asked me a very, very nasty question. And in the middle of her questioning, I brought up a statement, Rosie O'Donnell, and the entire place, it was the biggest combination of laughter, applause. The place went crazy. It interrupted her question. It obviously shook her up a little bit, but she was very angry. You could see it. And I made the statement, blood was pouring from her eyes. And then I said, blood was pouring from wherever. And I just, when I said that, I wanted to just get on to the, I didn't say
So
anything.
you did misspeak then.
Excuse me, George, I was referring to nose, ears. They're very common statements. And only a deviant would think of what people said. Some people said, only a deviant would even think that. Who would ever think that?
It was widely seen as that, but I mean, you did say just now.
No, they built that up, George. They built it up, but only literally a sick person would think that. And the only reason I even stopped my thought, I didn't even say anything because I stopped because I wanted to get on to the next subject, which I think was jobs, which was much more important to me. But I wanted to get on, so I stopped rather than saying nose or ears, because that's a very common coming from eyes, nose, ears. These are very common. And what it means is that a person is angry, very angry. She was very angry. And I was going to say it, but I didn't want to finish the statement, and I stopped the statement short. I mean, I didn't even say anything.
You explained what you meant to say there, but that is not what you said. Many people took it another way. But I do want to get into this, your relationship with women. You just talked about...
They should not have taken it, George, they should not have taken it another way.
You mentioned all the women you've hired in your businesses, but, you know, those comments that Megyn Kelly talked about did check out. We went back and looked at them, and there was also this from your bestseller, The Art of the Comeback. You wrote that women have one of the great acts of all times. The smart ones act very feminine and needy, but inside they are real killers. Real killers. What did you mean by that?
I say that with great respect. Women are tremendous. I find women to be, women, I've had such an amazing relationship with women in business. They are amazing executives. They are killers. Now, when I say that about a man, it's very sad. If you say that about a man, it's considered a great honor. It's also a great honor when you say it about a woman, and that's the way it was meant. They are phenomenal. And I have many executives that are women. They are doing a phenomenal job. I pay them a tremendous amount of money. They make money from me. They make money for themselves. And in many cases, they truly are really talented, and they can be killers. And you know what that statement means. And as a man, they love that statement, and women love it also. Part of the problem, George, part of the problem we have in this country, we're trying to be so politically correct that nobody can say anything anymore.
But that is the country. That's the country you're trying to become president of right now. And there is this impression out there that you've had this history of misogynist statements, that you are anti-women. You're responding to it right now, but you've got people like the chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party saying you're a chauvinist. How are you going to combat that impression? Isn't it a problem for you?
I don't think so at all, George. In the meantime, I'm doing very well in the polls with women. I've hired women. I have thousands working for me right now. They're doing phenomenally well and at top levels. I'm doing great in the polls. You know, speaking about New Hampshire, I'm leading New Hampshire. I'm leading Iowa. I'm leading North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm leading the state. And I mean, when I say leading, by big numbers leading, by very big, the numbers just came in from Georgia. I'm leading Georgia by phenomenal, by big numbers. And I'm leading in every national poll, and in some cases by double digits. And those are women voters largely. And I'm doing very well with the women voters.
Some other questions from conservatives about whether they will still support you after your entire record is known. John Carl talked about, you were asked in the debate about single-payer health care, your support for that in the past. Also back in 1999, you went on Good Morning America, also wrote in your book calling for a 14.25% wealth tax. Take a look.
This would be a one-time tax, 14.25%. against people with a net worth of over $10 million or more. It would pay off in its entirety the national debt of $5.7 trillion. You'd save $200 billion a year.
You now say you're against that, but why were you for it then? Why are you against
George,
it now?
At the time, I was willing to do it. I was wealthy even then. That was a long time ago. But I was willing to do it, and it was a suggestion. I would have loved to have seen the national debt be paid off. We're going to soon be over $20 trillion. We're up to 18, actually close to 19 now. We're going to be over $20 trillion. We should have paid off the national debt one way or the other.
So let me ask you about that.
We have to do something.
Let me ask you about that. Back in 1999, you're for the wealth tax. You were for single payer.
I was willing to do it.
Yeah, you were willing to do it then.
Willing to do it.
I get that. You were for that then. You were for single payer then. You're not for it now. How can conservatives trust that you're not going to change again?
Well, look, Ronald Reagan was a Democrat. In fact, he was on the liberal side of being a Democrat, and he changed, and he did a very good job, and I worked with him, and he liked me a lot, and I liked him a lot. But I worked with him, and he was a terrific guy, but he was a Democrat. And, George, he was sort of a liberal Democrat, and he changed, and I have evolved, and I have evolved very strongly, and I'm a conservative, and I have tremendous support, but I also have a lot of support among Democrats. You know, when you do your polls, if you look at your polls, I have support from all over the place, and people are actually shocked by it.
And, Mr. Trump,
and I'm leading in every poll.
And you have supported Democrats more recently. Back in 2006, you and your son gave $77,000 to Democrats. That was the election that brought Nancy Pelosi to power, brought Harry Reid to power. They've since passed President Obama's agenda. Conservatives are against that. So how can conservatives trust you when you recently gave so much money to their opponents?
Because, George, I made a net worth. I have a net worth of over $10 billion. I have been a world-class businessman, which is, by the way, what this country needs to make good trade deals instead of the way we're being ripped off by China and Japan and Mexico and everybody else. So I was a businessman. I was a business person, and I supported everybody because as a business person, you had to. And when I needed something, people were always there for me. If I supported somebody and 3 years later I needed something, they were always there for me. And by the way, George, I have to say this, that's what's wrong with the system. The lobbyists, the donors, all of these.
Well, that's what I want to get to. That's exactly.
People control everything.
That's exactly the question I want to get to. It came in from someone on Twitter, Mike Costello, who said, you've essentially confessed to bribing politicians. Would you fix this or perpetuate it? You've been part of the problem. How are you going to be part of the solution?
No, I'm not. No, I understand the system better than anybody does because I was part of the system. But I would support a lot of people. I was, until 2 months ago, when I announced that I'm going to run for president and make our country great again, which is what I'm going to do, and people see it. But I understand the system better than anybody. But they come and they see you. Look at Jeb Bush. He's raised over 100. He's raised 100 million more, I guess. And by the way, many of the people putting up that money are friends of mine. These are not people that are putting it up because they like the color of his hair. These are people that are putting it up because they want something and they're going to get something. And with me, I don't want anybody's money. So I can actually straighten out the country without having people come, special interests and everything else come and saying, no, you can't do that because so-and-so supported you. And I think it's one of the reasons that I'm killing everybody in the polls.
So it's clear you're not backing down, full speed ahead on the campaign. You'll be in the next debate?
We're doing fantastically well with the campaign. The numbers are incredible, and you know that better than anybody because you report them. And no, it's full speed ahead. I'm having a good time. I really love it.
Donald Trump, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, George.
Good morning. I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is tuned in. 24 million people watched Thursday's first Republican debate, a record, and we are feeling the fallout now. This morning, conservatives are pushing back on comments Donald Trump made on CNN about moderator Megyn Kelly. RedState.com editor Eric Erickson disinvited Trump to the conservative gathering this weekend. This is what he had to say.
I actually think it's really weak and pathetic to take a tough question from a journalist and assume she's having her period, and that's why she asked you a tough question.
Republican candidates have responded, some slamming Trump. Senator Lindsey Graham issued a statement saying his comments, quote, are not worthy of the office he is seeking. Others taking a softer approach, praising women at large without taking on the frontrunner directly.
Megyn Kelly was a colleague of mine for 6.5 years when I was at Fox. She's one of the most remarkable people I know. Intellectually, unsurpassed. As a broadcast journalist, she has great integrity.
We'll hear from two other candidates, Carly Fiorina and John Kasich, in a moment. But first, joining me on the phone is the man at the center of it all, the Republican frontrunner, Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, thanks so much for calling in. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Jake.
So I want to start by playing for you what Jeb Bush said yesterday in response to your comments about Megyn Kelly. Take a listen.
Come on. Give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Do we want to insult 53% of all voters? What Donald Trump said is wrong. That is not how we win elections. And worse yet, that is not how you bring people together to solve problems. That is not the way to do it. So your decision, I think, was the right one. Mr. Trump ought to apologize.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump, your response to Jeb Bush.
Well, I think it's amazing because 3 days ago he was talking so negatively about women's health issues. And I thought it was disgraceful, frankly. And I think that will go down to haunt him and maybe be the same as Romney's 47%, which possibly cost him the election. Jeb was very negative on women's health. And when you're negative on women's health, you can forget about it. And I'm the exact opposite. I cherish women. I want to help women. I'm going to do things for women that no other candidate will be able to do. And it's very important to me. So, you know, it's sort of interesting. He then went back and apologized the following day and said he misspoke. Well, he really did misspeak, and I thought it was disgraceful. So now he's telling me or telling you about what was said. Well, let me ask you, what was said? She was very angry because I bested her with a question that was a very unfair question. So she was very angry, and when I was speaking about it on a CNN show, by the way, which was interesting. But I was speaking about her. I said blood was pouring from her eyes or out of her eyes, which is a very common statement. And by the way, I said the same thing about Chris Wallace.
That's right.
Nobody said anything.
You did.
But I said the exact same thing about Chris Wallace.
But then you said she had blood. You said blood coming out of her wherever.
I said no. I said and blood was pouring for wherever, because I wanted to finish the sentence, because I went on to something. I wanted to get off of the whole thing and get back onto the subject of jobs or whatever we were talking to about right after that. So I didn't even say anything because I didn't even finish the thought. I was going to say nose and or ears, because that's a very common statement. Blood pouring out of somebody's nose. It's a statement showing anger. She had great anger when she was questioning me, especially since I mentioned something. That was the Rosie O'Donnell statement, which everybody said was by far the loudest applause of the entire day of all of the speakers.
Well, Mr.
And
Trump,
I think you would agree.
let me ask you.
And she became very angry, and
Right.
all I was doing is referring to anger. I said nothing wrong whatsoever.
So Eric Erickson,
and by the way, Jake, let me just say this: only a deviant would say that what I said was what they were referring to, because nobody can make that statement. You almost have to be sick to sort of put that together.
Well, among that list of deviants would be Eric Erickson, Jeb Bush.
Well, take a look at his past.
Lindsey
Lindsey
Graham, Carly
Jake,
Fiorina.
Jake, Carly Fiorina. Okay, I mean, give me a break.
But a lot. Why do you think so many
conservative?
Why do you think so many of your fellow colleagues, fellow candidates, so many conservative commentators are saying that they don't believe your explanation?
Because they want to be politically correct. They want to get points. I'm leading in the polls by a fortune. They wouldn't, by tremendous margins. They wouldn't have had. You think they would have had 24 million people watching that show if I wasn't on? If I wasn't on that show, Jake, in all fairness, and I say it in all due modesty, you would have had 2 million people, not 24 million people. And you can ask any expert about it. But 24 million people was not there to watch Carly Fiorina or Jeb Bush, or Lindsey Graham, who, by the way, has 0 in the poll.
Let me ask you a question, sir.
He's been my biggest. He has been my biggest critic, and he has 0 in the poll. And by the way, came to me asking for campaign contributions and everything else. People don't say that. Perry of Texas, he started attacking me quite viciously, and he went down in the polls, Jake. So, I mean, this is one of those things that I have to put up with.
Let me just ask you a question, sir. Do you, I understand you're saying that you did not mean to suggest that Megyn Kelly was having her period. You were saying...
Of course I did, Jake. Who would say that? Hey, Jake, I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I was an excellent student. I'm a smart person. I built a tremendous company. I had a show called The Apprentice that NBC desperately wanted me to do another season.
I'm familiar with your work, sir.
Okay, I do all this stuff. Do you think I'd make a stupid statement like that? Who would make a statement like that? Only a sick person would even think about it.
Why do you think that there are so many people jumping on you stating that that is what you were saying? So many... We're not talking about...
Jake,
in all due respect, sir, we're not talking about the Women's Studies Department at Oberlin. We're talking about conservatives. We're talking about the Concerned Women for America issuing a statement saying, quote, every presidential election since 1964 has been carried by women. Women don't like mean, and we certainly don't vote for men or women we don't trust. A lot of conservatives really upset.
So, Jake, you're asking me why are these people coming and saying this, right?
Yeah.
And most of them, most of the ones that I've seen on television, just opposing candidates. I'd say it's a stupid question, Jake, in all due respect. If they're running against me, some of them, like Carly, are very low in the polls. I hope she goes up. I'd like to see her go up, actually, but she's very low in the polls. Lindsey Graham, all these people that came out, they're running against me, Jake. They're running against me. I would say it, too, if I was at 1% or 2% or 0%. I'd say it against me because, I don't know if you just saw, but North Carolina, South Carolina just came out in massive leads. Nevada, New Hampshire. I'm winning big in New Hampshire. Winning big in Iowa. Winning big. They're incredible people. Winning big in Iowa. Winning big all over the place, Jake. Georgia just came out, and the national polls, I'm winning by double digits.
And this is what's interesting.
Then you ask, why are these people?
Well, I didn't mean your opponents. I meant conservative activists, people like Eric Erickson, the conservative.
Because a lot of them are for other people. Jake.
Okay.
Eric Erickson, I hear. I mean, look, he has such a spotty record. Have you seen what he said about women and other things over the years? I've seen things that he said where he was admonished. But look at what this guy said. The guy's a loser. He's backed so many candidates that have lost. And frankly, I didn't want to do his event in the first place. Somebody said, And you know what? It was even a small event. And tell me, what happened at his event when I didn't show up? Do you know the unrest, and do you know how devastated people were when I didn't go there?
I wasn't there. I know. I'm sure there were
unhappy.
people that were upset about it. You have a lot of fans. This is what's interesting about your campaign. Every time you make these comments, or you make comments that a lot of pundits or Republican candidates say are going to end your campaign, whether it's comments about Mexico sending in illegal immigrants or your comments about John McCain's war record. Every time you do that, pundits say, oh, he's gone, and then you go up in the polls. I'm wondering if you think, though, that going after Megyn Kelly, who is beloved by conservatives, beloved by Republican voters, I wonder if that's the wrong target, that this might actually hurt you. What do you think?
Well, look, I have nothing against Megyn Kelly. I think her question was extremely unfair to me. Her whole questioning was unfair to me. And when you say beloved, I will say this. On social media, I'm the one that's beloved. Okay? Because if you look at social media and what's happening, they are really coming out strongly in favor of Donald Trump. They agree. And this whole thing with this political correctness in this country is out of control. We have a country where you take a look at what's happening over the world. They're chopping off people's heads if you happen to be a Christian all over the Middle East, and for plenty of other reasons, too. The border, I turned out to be so right on the border. It's so dangerous and so bad. And then you see what happens to Cade in San Francisco, where people are crossing the border like it's water. And it's terrible what's going on. And all we worry about is political correctness. Jeb Bush, who came out horribly with the women issue the other day, with the women's health issue. Jeb Bush comes up and he says, I don't like Donald Trump's tone. Well, we need a tougher tone in this country, and we need a lot more enthusiasm, because these people don't have any energy. There's no energy. We need to bring our country back, make our country great again. Our country is going down into the ground. We're really getting decimated on trade deals. Everything we do, the Iran deal is so bad. We have people that are incompetent running our country, and we have to bring it back. And you can't do that by nice, low-key tone like Jeb Bush. He's got no energy. I mean, the man has no energy. And then he gets up and criticizes me over the weekend about something that I didn't even say.
Very interesting. Donald Trump, as always, we appreciate your calling in. We appreciate your taking my questions. I hope you have a good Sunday. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jake. Great honor.
Appreciate it. Coming up.
Good morning. When Donald Trump became a birther and insulted African Americans, a lot of people at the time said, that's it for Trump. Well, it wasn't. When he insulted Hispanics, a lot of people said, that's it for Trump. It wasn't. When he insulted John McCain, a lot of Republicans started to say, that's it for Trump. And it wasn't. Now the latest that's it for Trump moment, insulting Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly. Friday night, still smarting from tough and pointed questioning from all the debate moderators on Thursday, Trump said this of Kelly.
She starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions, and, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
Immediately, Eric Erickson disinvited Trump from his conservative red state gathering in Atlanta.
I don't want my daughter in the room with Donald Trump tomorrow night, so he's not invited. I'm sorry.
Trump's campaign hit back, calling organizer Eric Erickson weak and pathetic and saying, quote, Mr. Trump said blood was coming out of her eyes and whatever, meaning knows. Only a deviant would think anything else. Some of Trump's Republican rivals enthusiastically condemned his remarks.
Come on. Give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Do we want to insult 53% of all voters? What Donald Trump said is wrong.
Yeah, I agree with Carly that those comments are inappropriate.
But others, including Marco Rubio, whom I interviewed yesterday, took a different tact.
I've made a decision here with Donald Trump. If I comment on everything he says, my whole campaign will be consumed by it. Right. That's all I'll do all day.
I'm joined now on the phone from New York by Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Chuck.
Well, you've had 24 more hours to reflect on your comments on Megyn Kelly. Any change this morning? Do you want to apologize?
No, there's nothing to apologize. She asked a very, I thought, very unfair question, and so did everybody on social media. And I answered the question very well. I won every poll on debates, Time Magazine, Drudge, Newsmax, every poll. and people thought I won the debate easily. And, it's sort of an interesting thing. They did not like the way I was questioned, and I understand that, and I just want to get on. But what I said was totally appropriate. There was nothing wrong. Only a deviant, and I literally mean that, only a deviant would think anything other than that. What I said was
let me
totally
take you
fine.
at your word, but let me take you at your word on that and say you weren't trying to make a reference to hormones. You're
Absolutely
still making
not.
a demonic or animalistic reference with with blood in your eye. It's still a demeaning comment, even by your new definition.
No, I don't think so. Look, she was very angry, and look, I respect people. And she was very angry because I brought up something that got the loudest applause of the day by far, and it really interrupted her when she did the question. And she was very angry. And all I said is there was blood, essentially, there was blood pouring out of her eyes, and there was blood. And then I said, you know what? I want to get on to the next sentence because, frankly, I don't have to talk about the blood coming out of her ears and her nose, which is a very common statement. So I said, all right, wherever, let's go. And I got on to the next statement. And then all of a sudden, the next day, I wake up and I hear that somebody took it as something else. Only a deviant would think that, Chuck. I didn't even think that. Who would think it? Hey, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, the toughest place to get into. I was a great student. I don't talk that way.
So why can't you apologize? Then why can't you just apologize for saying, you know what, I'm sorry, some people took it the wrong way? You seem to have an allergy. You seem to have an allergy toward apologizing.
No, I apologize when I'm wrong, but I haven't been wrong. I mean, I said nothing wrong. There's nothing. It's a very common statement. I've said it about many. Excuse me, I said it about Chris Wallace. I said there was blood pouring because he tried to question me, and he's a small shadow of his father, Mike. That I can tell you. But I said it about Chris Wallace. And Chris Wallace came out, and I said there was blood pouring out of his eyes. Nobody asked me about apologizing.
You know, I want to read you a comment of somebody who was rather supportive of you. This was a supporter in Atlanta and said this, though. Her name's Mira Adams, and it was in the Washington Post, and she said this. Talking about blood and a woman, it was just inappropriate. Megyn Kelly is just so well-liked by the public. He should have made nice with her. I thought the question was a little off base, but he took, referring to you, a mosquito bite and turned it into a skin cancer.
Well, Chuck, I would have made nice. I have no problem, and I have no problem apologizing if I'm wrong. But, when I say it about Chris Wallace and there was nothing wrong, and then you say it about Megyn Kelly, is there a double standard? We're talking about everybody being the same. I mean, are we talking about double standards? And I don't mind apologizing if something's wrong. The only thing is, on the second part of it, I didn't want to waste time, going in. I wanted to get on to the next statement because, frankly, it was more important than what I was discussing. So I just cut it short. But I never referred to anything having to do with the other subject matter that a couple of people thought I might have. And then you had this guy, Eric Erickson, who's a total, he's a known loser. And everybody in politics.
Mr. Trump, let me stop you here for a minute, because anybody that criticizes you, you've done it to me in the past when you've not liked something I said. When somebody criticizes you, you go after them, you find something in their physical appearance. You go after them personally. Why? Why is this your tendency?
Chuck, I don't. And maybe more so than most people. But part of the problem we have now is political correctness. We have a country that's in trouble. We have a country where in the Middle East they're chopping off people's heads if they happen to be a Christian, and for other reasons also. We have you look at what's going on the border with Kate and with all of the problems in San Francisco, with all of the problems that we've got. You look at what's going on in the country with crime and with our inner cities and everything, and all they talk about is tone. Jeb Bush said, well, Mr. Trump's tone is not. Well, we don't have enough time for tone. We need enthusiasm. We need something. We need a much tougher tone than we've had, because it's not about tone. We have to straighten out our country. We have to make our country great again, and we need energy and enthusiasm. And this political correctness is just absolutely killing us as a country. You can't say anything. Anything you say today, they'll find a reason why it's not good.
Well,
I think we have to, you know what, Chuck? Essentially, though, I think we have to get back to work as a country. I heard Jeb Bush the other day say a terrible thing about women's health issues. He made a horrible mistake. I equate that mistake as being worse than what Romney said about the 47%, which possibly cost him the election. And I will be fantastic. I have so much respect for women, and I will help women in terms of their health issues because it's so important to do that. And Chuck, I have thousands of women working for me. I have women working at high positions. I was one of the first people to put women in charge of big construction jobs. And, you know, I've had a great relationship with women, and I will help women with women's health issues, unlike somebody like Jeb Bush, who really made a big mistake, and he was later forced to apologize.
Except, and look, let me go back to the premise of Megyn Kelly's question, which was, you have a tendency of disparaging women on looks, and we're seeing all sorts of, I found 10 instances, sometimes in your book, sometimes in your Twitter feed. You went after people like Bette Midler, you went after people like Gail Collins. Why do you have to go after the look? This is what some women find offensive, Mr. Trump, is that you go to looks. It's a disparaging thing. It's something out of Mad Men, sir.
Well, some of the things that she said I didn't say, okay, and she went through a whole list, and this was a hell of a first question, by the way. But I will say this. I was attacked by the people that you talk about. When you mentioned a couple of those names, I was attacked viciously by those people. I don't mean a little bit. I mean viciously. When I'm attacked, I fight back. But I was attacked viciously by those women. Of course, it's very hard for them to attack me on looks because I'm so good looking. But I was attacked very viciously by those women. And frankly, again, we get back to the words political correctness. Am I allowed to defend myself? What they said about me is far worse than what I said about them, Jeff. So, again, I want to get back to the country. We have such problems.
Yeah.
We have unemployment that's incredible. We need jobs. We have to take jobs back from China. That's the subjects that I'm good at. And by the way, during that whole debate, which was 24 million people, and if I wasn't on, they would have had 2 million people, not 24 million people, and everybody admits that. You would have had just another debate that nobody would have watched. So, you know, that's one of those things. But I want to get back to jobs. They didn't ask me one question about jobs. And every single poll said I am by far the best by triple digits. I am by far the best on jobs and the economy. They didn't ask me about jobs or the economy. I want to talk about all of these issues. But a lot of times I don't get the opportunity because people hit me with questions that don't relate to those.
Maybe the next time we will be able to do issues.
We will. I hope so, Chuck. That's what I want to do, jobs and the economy. That's what I really want to do.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.